Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started today. First, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining this event and this community as it is. We are really excited for today's session as Microsoft is going to be hosting Adobe, who is going to cover a topic that is really getting a whole lot of buzz right now in the federal space. So, we are going to be talking to some amazing folks here at Adobe, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. But they're going to cover this topic of e-signatures and digital signatures through its native integration. So I want to take just a really quick second to let you know that today's event is part of our Federal Business Applications webinar series. And you can check out some of our previous sessions on our GitHub. We post the links to that content there, as well as the upcoming sessions that we're going to be hosting throughout the remaining months. And there's also some additional resources as well to help you leverage that technology stack that Microsoft has and how you can leverage it within your agencies. So check it out. We'll post a link within the chat window in just a moment. But again, thank you all for joining today. And honestly, our goal truly is to spread awareness of how you can leverage the Microsoft technologies. And for today, we're talking about Adobe, as well as their technology for e-signatures and digital signatures. And we say all of that because we know firsthand how you can leverage those products to improve your business products. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to run over some brief introductions for the presenters today. There's three of us, or two of us, three of us, and then we're going to cover some code of conduct. From there, I'm going to go over the Microsoft Solution Suite so that we are all on the same page of which tools we're going to be referencing in this demo. And then after that, I'm going to turn it over to Adobe to do the demo of their content. And then lastly, we are going to wrap up with about a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session where you can ask any questions that you may have about the content. And just a quick notice before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything, guys. This meeting is being recorded. And it is also being transcribed. So if you have any closed captioning that you'd like to enable, you should have the option to do so at this point. Now, when we come to who's on the call today and who's presenting to you, we will first start with myself. I am Tara Clark. I'm a BizApps technical specialist with Microsoft Federal. And my core focus here within the government space is demonstrating how agencies can leverage the Power Platform and even the dynamic suite that we have to improve those business processes and also resolve some of those outstanding business issues that seem to migrate from time to time from one administration to the next. I will leave the deeper dive into their background for them to cover, but briefly, I want to introduce you to Jeffrey Young. He's a solution consultant manager for Adobe Systems in the public sector. And you guys were really lucky today because in his 12-year tenure at Adobe, he has specialized in content strategy, content security, and operational efficiencies. So when he walks you through what he's going to walk you through today, he actually knows how it applies from a strategy perspective and then an operational perspective as well. And then we also have Alexandra Tertios. She's also a solution consultant joining us today from Adobe, and she's going to bring in that experience in the public sector federal space. So there's a lot on this slide here when it comes to code of conduct. But to summarize this, we just really want to put out that this is a Microsoft digital event, and our goal is to create a safe, inclusive space where our entire community can benefit from the expertise of you all, from us, from our presenters, from our guests, everybody. And so we want to be able to share this out. And as you know, a follow-up to that, we do reserve the right to remove folks if things kind of get out of hand or disruptive. So basically, I mean, we know how it goes. We want the session to be engaging. We want you to have a great time, but also just be respectful. Very basic. Okay, so now when it comes to communications that you may receive for us, Well, we want to be completely transparent with all of you that since we captured some of your contact information when you registered for this event, um, we want you to know how we're going to use that information. So in addition, you have the option to ask for us to not use your information, and you have that option to ask to be removed. We'll send emails pertaining to future webinar sessions or links to things like today's recording or even product updates. We're going to send you information that we think that you would benefit from or be interested in. Now, again, you can always opt out of this. Just simply let us know that you'd like us to remove your contact information and just be responsive when you see these messages come through so that we make sure that we remove your data. Okay, then when it comes to asking questions, well, we're going to leave the cameras off for everyone today, but the chat is open and we have experts monitoring to help answer any questions that you have. And then once we get to the Q&A portion after the live demo, this portion will not be recorded. I should first put that out there, but we're going to give you the ability to come off of mute and ask questions during that time. Please just raise your hand. There's the raise your hand icon at the top of the meeting invite for anyone that was looking for it. By doing so, that'll help us know who to call on in which order and just keep things orderly. That's all that we ask. So really briefly, I just want to talk about the Business Applications Productivity Suite because you're going to hear some of these terms in the demo portion. So to start, we have the out-of-the-box apps, which many of them are, I'm sure you guys use on a daily basis. And then we have all the way on the other side, on the right side, we've got the custom app development tools under Azure. And this is more for that, more intense development, coding type of situation. That's what those apps are for. And then we have the no-code, low-code app development side of the house. And this is the Power Platform. We do a lot of focus here in Power Platform because it is indeed no-code, low-code. And then we also have our first-party apps, our dynamic suite, which is covered here. Many of you may be familiar, but customer service and field service are some of our top contenders here when it comes to tools that work very well for federal. But today, guys, we're going to focus on the Power Platform, and more specifically, you're going to hear probably a lot of talk about Power Automate. That is going to be one of the tools most likely that you may either have been exposed to or are engaging currently in your organization right now to help with the signature portion of the business issues that you've got going on. Now, from there, guys, I am happy to turn this over to Jeffrey to jump into the live demo portion. So from there, Jeffrey, it is all you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you for having Adobe on this call. I'm going to take control here. Actually, I'm going to go to the share. Perfect. All right, let me just slide this over. So what we're going to discuss today is Acrobat Sign for government and how it works very well hand in hand from ideally a single pane or where you are currently doing and producing some of your work documents for flows and processing. And what I want to really focus on for our session here today is to think about the experience. Think about your experience that you are currently doing when you're filling out forms, processing forms, signing forms, and ultimately tracking those. And we want to focus on what would be the ideal end user experience while still providing security, transparency, and the ideal way to collaborate while still maintaining data integrity throughout the process. And so in order to create that ideal experience, we recognize that a lot of things are going to start within the Microsoft, either Office, Teams, some of the collaborations that you all are doing. And it's great to go to the Power Automate and just do that search for Adobe Acrobat Sign and see already existing flows with those as well as the PDF services. And then we recognize and we hear it on a daily basis of, we love the quality of a digital signature and the way that it's maintained, revocation, all those things, and how you've been using it in Adobe Acrobat Reader for decades. But we also want to provide that ideal end user experience to mitigate some of the save as that you're having to do and things that are typically taking place offline in some capacity. And then ultimately providing transparency into signatures and workflows with tools that you're already using with Adobe Acrobat. What we're going to be showcasing is Acrobat Sign, which is a software as a service stored as part of the document cloud and is hosted on Azure. And just thinking about this as across all the apps with many pre-built integrations, already existing components to help just really increase productivity, low code, as Tara was mentioning, and just integrate and connect with your day in the life. And we recognize everyone's on a journey, and these experiences for capturing and maintaining, processing, storing, certifying, and signing documents and data. Everyone's on separate journeys, whether they have connectivities, whether they are completely offline, sometimes still maintaining both a PDF form and a template. We recognize as you want to move from both paper-based to having it make sure it's just digital and meeting file weight accessibility. Once you get to that data layer, you're able to now produce it, whether it's an HTML, as an interactive PDF, as form data, getting towards a more Q&A experience where you might be asked about 30 questions based on some of the previous questions, and that would then populate roughly 20 to 30 documents of records that can be signed and certified, provide a mobile experience, and very intelligent forms. Ultimately, just moving you through efficiency, security as you look along the x-axis. And sometimes we like to figure out, hey, where are you now and where do you want to go? And what are the steps that would be necessary in order to get there, while still maintaining sort of an aggregate so that you can still provide sometimes a PDF or even wet sign experience. Tara had this on there, just wanted to do the bottom line up front. Adobe Acrobat Sign for Government is FedRAMP moderate. It is hosted on the Azure GCC. So hopefully that rests on people's minds as we talk about security and where this is hosted. We're very excited to do that as part of Adobe as part of our other tools and applications that are already deployed and certified under FedRAMP. So what I want to do is take you through what could be a typical experience today for a particular form. This is the SF26. Looks like just like any other form, whether it was created in Microsoft Word, Adobe Acrobat, Adobe Experience Manager forms. There are a lot of forms out there that you want to then just take into a process and be able to maintain it. But the process kind of flows a little bit something like this. And this goes from talking to federal agencies, state and local, across the board, almost on a daily basis, that what they see right now is that they would typically either send it out or host it on a website, and that form gets attached with maybe some instructions going out. In this case, that the contractor for this SF26, there's a contractor and a contract officer that's a part of what would take place. One's internal, one's external. And so they would receive an email with the form attachment. After that email, they would then download that form from the email, so that way they can open it and say Acrobat or Reader. And then they fill out that form. Hopefully it's got some field level validations. Hopefully it's got some dynamic, high show, but sometimes they're pretty flat and they fill it out. And then ultimately they need to, in this case, they're going to print the form because they feel they need to wet sign it. They don't have a certificate authority issuing them digital signatures. So they print the form, then they wet sign it. Ron here has the beautiful non-cursive signature. And then the beautiful scan it back into their system, save it as a different file, and then they email it to the contracting officer, which this happens a lot. They fail to attach it. So contract officer comes in, responds, hey, thanks, but I didn't get the attachment. Can you please attach it? So Ron then this time attaches the email and he feels like he is done. And then the CEO then downloads the form, opens it in Acrobat so that she can use her digital signature in order to do that. In this case, whether it's a CAC, PIV, or any PKI signature, the digital signature field in there is looking for that and being able to validate based on the already existing trusted certificates in the Adobe Acrobat Cloud to do the validation, revocation, and long-term validations. And so after she signs it, the experience that you all are seeing right now is that there's a save as. Automatically comes up. Whenever you go to digitally sign in Acrobat, it's going to do a save as. So now you underscore save as, and ideally, and then always along the way that someone's asking you, whether in a chat or a Slack, is to say, hey, where is what's the status of this? Because there's no way of tracking this. It's handled completely in email at the moment. And so you respond back, but also you just finished and you signed that email and you've now attached it, unlike Ron did on the first try. So now you have one that has been filled out, printed, scanned, signed, and now it's really flat file. So the data is no longer there. And now, but she has digitally signed it and is sending it over to the procurement officer, who then takes a look at that form and needs to enter some of these fields into the database. So they have to look at it and then type those fields into that database in addition to the certified document of record that was signed by Leslie, is now stored in the document of record. I know this seems like a lot, but actually 17 steps is pretty efficient for this type of form and this process that one page requiring 2 signatures. This is the typical for today. And what we're saying now is, and you guys have constantly been asking, is there a better way? How do we ensure both transparency throughout the process, security, the ability to collaborate, send things off, but also work with our digital captive signatures? So what I get to demonstrate for you all today is a process that looks like this, embedded into what is already part of your process in workflows, whether you're using Teams or collaboration. And there's many ways to kick off a process, to manage it, and then where to store it at the end. But that's ultimately where it is. Where does this process start and where does it finish? And generally, it's going to start in something like SharePoint or Teams, and it's going to finish off in SharePoint or Teams or OneDrive, and that's where the certified document of record will go. So in this case, what you're going to see in this demonstration is I'm going to kick off the process in Teams. I'll be able to navigate there, look for a particular template that's already existing. In this case, it'll be from OneDrive, but you can pull from Teams and SharePoint. It will then give me an option to modify that form as necessary, all working within the Acrobat inside of Teams. And then it's going to route to these next 2 folks. Ron is on the outside, so he's going to assign it electronically. So no more downloads, prints, wet signatures, and being able to maintain the management of it throughout. He will then finish it and it will notify both Jeffrey Procurement, but it will also notify Leslie that there's something to sign. Leslie will go and open up the form and click to digitally sign it. It will automatically open up in Acrobat so it can crawl the certificate chain and the revocation list and do everything that's necessary, and then automatically go to the next step of the process, which in this case is where the Power Automate script will pick it up, maybe pull some of the data, but also deposit it in something like SharePoint or OneDrive. And then everyone gets a notification that it's done with, if they want to, the attached audit log as well as the attached document. So it depends on what they've configured for that particular process. So ultimately expediting that 17 plus steps that you saw before and satisfying a variety of signatures, removing any analog, being able to track this, satisfying both an internal and external. And there's many ways that we'll discuss things about authentication, what can be done. So hopefully this will be beautiful for you all to see and music to your ears. And so let's get right into the demonstration. So here I am. I am in Teams, and I have a panel right here to the left here that I'm able to see the Acrobat Sign interface all within Teams here. And in this case, I'm going to go to my documents, and this is where the documents are stored. And you can see I can pull from a Teams or a channel or OneDrive specifically. I'm going to pull from my Adobe Acrobat Sign templates. We also have some preloaded if you're going directly into the sign interface. I'm going to do the SF26. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to request signatures. We have a very quick, easy way of doing it here where I can start typing in both, so we'll get my pre-population going. But there are some other options that you may want to do. So let's take a look at those. And so what this is doing, it's going to take that document, it's going to pull this into this interface. And this is a similar interface that would be what the web UI would be able to provide. What the web UI will be able to provide end users. If you want to go with a complete ad hoc one, we can already do some pre-existing processing and approaches to if you have a link and even web forms out there, you'll be able to do those with links. So we're going a little bit slow on this spinning wheel here, so hopefully this will accelerate for us and we'll get through the process here. The documents can come from multiple places. So this is a similar interface that you want to very easily. It will pull in from the LDAP, as well as I have our 2 folks that I have, Leslie Note. And so you can see I can authenticate in multiple ways. We can do passwords, knowledge-based authentication. We have some digital identity gateway for some of the external users, login.gov, ID.me, all those that you might want to use and leverage. You can sign them in any order that you want. Or it can be in a serial fashion like you see here between Ron and Leslie, but I can quickly move Leslie to the top or Ron, but these are participant level 1 or 2. You can do group addresses, and then you can even sometimes you have different types of signatures, whether it's just a pure approval, they don't necessarily need to sign, or they're just a form filler, or they are the ones that delegate. So you can do multiple things within there and set up a whole serial fashion or Like I said, you can complete it in any order, and as the users open up the form, sign it, it'll be the next version of that for that user. I'm going to make a few changes to this form template, and so I'm submitting that over there. This form template, I'm going to switch over to Acrobat just so you can see what the template looked like at the beginning. So this is that template, and so you can see it's very similar to a lot of the forms that you already have, and there's even ways you can do naming conventions on there, as well as target particular fields. Like this one, I'm going to look at the properties here, and I've set which one I want to be, signer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that way it will already come pre-existing, and sign will have an awareness of what that is needing to do. So let me flip back over to Team. So hopefully it's submitting that so I can make these adjustments. Yeah. So the next portion of the demonstration is where the signatures are going to be collected, and that's where, after I process this form, those signatures are going to be collected from those two end users. You'll see both an electronic signature where they're going to authenticate through their email in this case, but as I said, multiple authentications through your SSO, through ID.me, login.gov, knowledge-based authentications, whatever you need for what you're controlling internal or external users, and then they would be able to electronically sign. And the difference between electronic and digital signature, most of you know that the digital signatures are those that are PKI based, are certifying a PDF and using your CACs and PIVs to do so. An electronic signature is one that's going to be doing more like what you can do an image, a scribble, still legally binding, non-repudiation, and validating with the e-signature and e-sign act to be able to do that. So the two signatures that you'll see, one would, I'm supposing, as a external, and then one as an internal, and the end user experience that they will have for that. And so once they are able to move that form along, and then afterwards, you're not having to download it or save as or push it into a records management system. You're able to take advantage of what's already being connected in there and then process it out to the Power BI tables that you might have, as well as SharePoint for the system. Let me see if this one came up here. So maybe we'll take this one off to the races. So this is what will come up after that one processes. And so I'm just going to take a look at this field, and I'm going to say this one's required, and I'm going to assign this to Ron. And then you can set conditions. You can make certain fields hide, show, or disable, enabled based on fields. I'm just going to take the date field here, a very quick one. I'm going to assign this one also to Ron, our initial signature. It just knows he's participant 1, and this can be calculated, but I can put a validation for a particular date. And similar to a lot of the regular expressions, this one's going to have a month, date, year. And now down here, I have these two signature fields that were already existing on the template. We can pre-populate some fields from the authenticated user. So in this case, I'm just going to grab the name field for our authenticated user like Ron. And then I'm going to take this other signature field and say, I want this to be a digital signature field. So we have a digital signature field all within here. And now I want to make sure I assign that particular digital signature field to Leslie. So we have just few required fields. I'll briefly fill it out just to save us some time later, but now I'm going to send this off. This is where the process kicks off. So now this is submitted, and it will head out over to Ron, who is now going to take that. So we got confirmation that this is over to Ron. Now I'm logged in as Ron. He automatically received a notification. He's going to review and sign. So based on that link and his email, he's going to be automatically authenticated in. It's going to present that form where he will now see from an end user perspective what he needs to fill out. And again, to remind you that Ron is our electronic signer. So he will be the one electronic signing this document. And when he pulls up this form, it'll have those validations that will be necessary for him. And in the meantime, now that this process is kicked off, it can also be tracked from the dashboard, whether within Teams or from the web UI. So you're going to see I'm able to manage this process now, all within here. When Acrobat sign, I'm able to have this, which ones are in process, which ones are waiting for me that need to be assigned. as well as I have access to the complete ones, and I can do a full search based on the form fields or the text. All right, so he is required to sign these certain fields, and you can see when I put in a date, like roughly today, that doesn't validate, but if I do 2023, it does validate. We are good to go. Ron's name is already pre-populated in there, since I use that type of field. I can do that scribble signature, or I can upload an image. I can do a type like this for Ron Swanson. And as well as I can do a mobile signature, we'll send an email out. I can scribble it on my device and be able to do that. So that's my signature for Ron. He clicks the sign, and now that is submitted. What it's going to do now is it's going to capture that Ron signed it, store that, and now it's going to be routed and notify Leslie Knope as the next step of the process, which, as you remember, Leslie is our digital signature in there. So what you just saw was a electronic signature, but now I'm going to go into the digital signature, be able to manage that particular one. And so Leslie should receive a notification, but I like to see here just sort of, as you want to be able to manage and track it throughout, you can actually see where the document is as it's being processed. So I still have this one in progress. And I can also see what the document looks like. I can see it's currently to Leslie. If I need to delegate someone as the owner of the process, I'd be able to do that. I can also add a note to the form where that will pop up for Leslie as she is going. In the meantime, I'm going to go to Leslie's email where she's got the notification. We're going to start pulling up this document because I ultimately want to get to that CAC-PIV visual for a digital signature. So while that is pulling up for her, preparing document. Over here on the team site where I'm able to manage, I could download the PDF. I can send a reminder email just to say, hey, this is where it is. I can also see the full activity of when Ron opened up the email, when he received it. That transparency is going to persist, and you're also going to see that in an audit log. And so as Leslie's going to prepare this document, we're going to see the interface that she will have when she goes to open up the document. All she needs to do is sign it. And so that digital signature is going to start here in a browser. And you see me navigating 3 different browsers just so this will work with Edge, this will work with Chrome, Brave, Safari. All of these you'll be able to do, and it will have a experience where you click to sign it, and then it's going to automatically open up in the tool, which in this case is Acrobat. Some questions probably come in regard to mobility and being able to leverage the digital certificates on there. We get that question quite a bit. So as of right now, Acrobat Mobile does not allow for digital signing. Doesn't have both the libraries in there as well as connectivity with the Apple and Android systems to do digital signing. However, like I said, you can authenticate with a single sign-on using your CAC-PIV to authenticate to this system. And then once you've authenticated, you'll be able to pull from those credentials, and then it will pre-populate based on that user's information. And then you can electronically sign like Ron, and then there's also a certifying digital signature that will be put on there to also do that tamper-proof seal at the end. And so what that tamper-proof seal looks like, I've pulled one up previously, is that you'll have a full audit report. We have a certified document here, and then you can see that you can have that auditability. This can be appended to your signed document, be alongside with it. And then you can see what the end user signatures will look like in here. So this is what it will look like once Leslie signs it. You can see this is with her CAC-PIV type PKI signature. We see Ron's on here. We can also validate Ron's by clicking that link, and it'll say, yeah, this is a go. This is a transaction that is valid for him in particular. But also we have that signature panel that shows where those signatures are. So I see Leslie's digital signature, long-term validation, who the certificate authority was, and everything like that. See if this one's pulled up yet. Getting to that clincher for you all to see that sign. And I see Alex going to town, writing a whole bunch of responses. And Tara, if you want to ask any going out, it's coming to the end here. We're going to see it. but I want to be able to answer some of the questions here. As I see, I'm trying to look off to the other screen to see if I have anything. What I will show is some of the Power Automate side while that is pulling up. So this will deposit directly into, say, OneDrive or SharePoint. In addition to that, you can see some of the Power Automate templates that we already have existing. So you do a search for Acrobat Sign, and there's an Acrobat Sign for Government that you can also find on your GCC, where it will have some of the existing flows, and you can see all of these flows that Acrobat Sign, as well as some of the PDF services that you might have from Adobe to get your process started, whether you want to merge data from a SharePoint list and route it through a certain groups in your Active Directory, whether you want to deposit some of the form information into a SharePoint list or pull from a Power App form to then create a document or record to then need to be signed and pushed throughout the rest of the process. Here she is. Great. So now this is when you got assigned this. It's all controlled within Acrobat Sign. But now I'm going to actually, let me go ahead and fill out Leslie's name here. Leslie, no. And then we click to sign. We're going to open with Acrobat. And so it says, okay, you need to sign this. So begin processing this document, and then it will do a download into sign. So I think that's this document processing. Get rid of that extra tab, let this thing roll on its own. And so all the meanwhile, the manager or whoever sent this out, and even Ron along the way knows that this is currently assigned to Leslie. So until she does this final signing, and that will take place pulling from her PKI inside Acrobat, then it will then be pushed. And what we have in this case is in Power Automate, I've automatically moved this flow and stored it in a particular drive in OneDrive based on some of the form data. So based on who filled it out, we'll create a folder on there, and then it can be deposited in there. You can store this in any way you want. We can also export the form data and present that as a CSV file, or take that structured data and move it into, say, a Power App, because sometimes you want to search based on what's in that actual form data. And so this is the document you saw. This is what I just put in just now. Here's Ron's signature, and now we have to do a nice little line what I need to do. And she will pull from this. This will be where your CAC pivot is. If you need to enter a PIN, it will do so. And now if she signs it, there's no save as. It's automatically receiving this data, and it's going to then push this into the server. And now this will be part of the completed ones. And that's where Power Automate picks this up, takes it into that OneDrive folder in this particular case based on the form data. And that's where end users can find it, but also Ron and the initiator, as well as Leslie, will get a email notification in this particular case to the documents themselves, as well as that audit record. And that audit record is going to look a little bit something like this. Since we're running low on time, you won't be able to see it, but you'll see I will get an email of this. I will also be able to pull this up inside of the dashboard, inside Teams, or in the web UI. So let that roll out there. And let me show Teams. I can see Leslie's in here, and this one is currently out for signature. It will move into the completed. See if we got the notification. It was successful. So that's out there. And now if I go into Teams, that should reflect depending on our server. So I should see waiting for me. Manage. And that same document I will have inside of here. So I should receive another notification from Ron, who in his email received an email that it was complete. I can open up the agreement. I can see the audit report. Ladies and gentlemen, we got through this demo. Even with all those spinning wheels, this was the main stuff that I did want to show. And then we got through it all. So you can see that this was document that was signed. It was sent back to them. If you want to do that, you don't have to have it sent back to the users. They will be able to search for it in their web UI, as well as from within Teams inside of the Teams interface. So I can see that the in progress is 0, So that particular one will be stored in the completed folder, and that's where I can go and download it from in other times. So if I go and manage here, for this particular user, I can download the CSV report, I can download the audit report, the document itself. And as I said, the end users had a notification as well. So now you can see it in the completed Ron Swanson, and you can see the full history within the web UI. But this is where I can download the audit report, download the field data, download the PDF. I can open up the agreement from within here, and you can see the full history of the entire report, all here within Teams. So you can manage government within Teams, and Power Automate picked it up and dropped it into a particular SharePoint repository for us. So if I'll go ahead and open up all of those documents.
This is so great, Jeffrey. I really appreciate this. I hate to cut in here. We only have 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to make sure that we address the last couple of things. If you can speak to PIV integration, CAC integration, and then third-party integration, such as ID.me and third-party, that would be great.
Excellent. And so hopefully it's very clear that the CAC and PIV integration is going to be as you currently have it. You can authenticate with your authenticating CAC through your SSO, whether it's going to be SAML, ADFS, your Azure environment. You'll be able to authenticate in using that. In this case, you saw an email authentication. But from a signing perspective, what you just saw in when Leslie signed, that is a very exact similar experience where if I load my CAC card into that active client or the card reader, it will be able to digitally sign, pick that up and sign it just like Leslie did. And then once she signs it, her part is done and it goes automatically into the next step of the process, whether it routes to another person or it goes and gets put into the system of record. So whether it's CAC, whether it's PIV, whether it's any PKI, as long as it's loaded into the system, whether it's in your keychain or your Microsoft CAPI, it will be able to pull that certificate in and sign, crawl those chains and the long-term validation. And hopefully what you got to see here, aside from that spinning wheel, when that part wasn't taking place, you were able to digitally sign it just like you currently do, but now it's interacting and tracked the entire time instead of those 17 steps like you saw in there. And authentication, where ID.me or login.gov take place, where end users have already authenticated, and the variety of levels that both of those services provide. We have something called Digital Identity Gateway, where many of those also, ID Now is another one. Those are being added to that so that end users can authenticate. So you just send it to an email address for them, and they will get the and they designate that particular user and that person that in the processor step will need to sign it using one of those services, and then it will connect to that. And then once that service authenticates that user, it'll push them into the that voucher or that and through SSL into our system. So now that they are authenticated, it can pre-populate information, all those things that would be coming from that service. And then you're able to move forward through the rest of the process now that you're authenticated.